to Any Excuse for a Podcast. We hope you're all doing well. As usual, thanks for the following. We're here back at the Pier in Ballock. If you've seen our last episode, they've sponsored, they've got a wee partnership with the Pier. So get yourself involved. They've got an actual burn supper into the 28th of January. Their tickets are on sale, so get involved with them there. Also, we've got another sponsor, Henry Dunlop Tiling, HD Tiling. Give him a wee follow on Instagram. We'll get him up on our social medias. Splashbacks, bathrooms, kitchens, one of the best out there. So give him a wee shout to Henry. And also, 86 Media, our amazing cameraman behind us, who's doing all our stuff for editing and filming. Give him a wee follow on Instagram. We'll also get him up. But how have you been? Have you been all right?
Good, very good. It's only been a week since the last podcast, and I'm starting good in January, trying to stay off the drink, eat healthier. And it's been 6 days so far, so...
Your skin looks better already.
I know.
Yeah,
I need maybe get rid of the beard though. Is the beard too much, do you think?
No, it's fine.
I can see underneath the beard there's some blotchiness, so I'd keep that going.
Yeah,
but see these bits, you're absolutely singing.
I know, I appreciate it.
Well, we've got what a guest we've got on. It's actor, comedian, Sanjeev Kohli.
Hiya! So listen, before we start, is it who's the tile at the tiles place?
Henry Dunlop.
Henry Dunlop. Henry, if you're watching, change your name to Harry and call your place Harry's Tiles. And what will happen is you'll get a lot of X1 Direction fans coming to buy your tiles off you. It's just a marketing tie-in that I just thought of now. Harry's Tiles, who wouldn't?
There we go.
There we go, Harry. Well done. We'll get you in your social media. Happy days. So how are you, Sanjeev? You good?
I'm grand, aye. This is lovely.
Do you like it? That's good,
I'm very fond of this bit of the world. Last time I was here, I brought my dad to... We did... the number of times I've come to Ballock and the Loch Lomond area, but I've never done the actual boat tour.
Right.
And I took my dad on the boat tour. It was magic. It's really good fun.
That's just down the road.
Just literally just there. So no, I'm very fond of this bit of the world. It's a bit unusual to come to this bit of the world and not have chips.
Right, I will.
And so I might have to on the way.
I might get a chippy after, you know.
I don't know, are we allowed chips in January though?
Of course.
Might get some quinoa on the way home.
Talking about up the lock, I went and done a bit of cold water therapy. Last week, me and my two mates, David and Paul, went up to
Okay, when you say you did a bit of cold water therapy, do you mean you get leathered and jumped in the water, or was this intentional? You were always going to get in the water?
It was fully my decision to get in the water,
okay,
so it was fine, don't worry about that.
Then it counts, okay.
But take your hat off to people that done that, because...
Well, you should take your hat off because it'll get soaking.
Well, that's a good point, to be fair. But no, we done that Sunday, but I felt as if I was in for about 5 minutes, but I was probably in for about a minute.
I done it in summer. I would never...
Summer?
I know, I wouldn't have the braveness to do it in the winter.
But there's a whole thing as well that, like, the whole body, it depends on the water, the whole body of water takes like months to warm up. So it's not even like the height of summer. Apparently, well, I could be talking about arse here, but I think it might be even later. You have to wait for the whole thing to warm up before it gets to acceptable.
Yeah.
But then you want it to be cold. You want to go, oh yeah. You want that. And then,
Do you know what? This sounds stupid, right? I'm going to make myself an idiot here. I didn't know everywhere in the world the water's the same temperature.
That's not stupid.
But do you know what? Because I always thought that
you think
is the ocean just hotter because it's in Spain? But it's obviously just because Spain's hotter.
No, but the water is warmer in Greece, is it not?
It is warmer, but I thought it was just at that age. I don't know.
I think basically, if you get lots of hours of sunlight, it does warm the water up, and we don't have that in Scotland. Yeah. I don't think you've been stupid at all.
Well, a boy said the other day, because there was a lot of folk doing it, but a guy was up there saying that the water only goes up a degree for like the summer to now, but I'm like, it goes down about 10 degrees between summer and now, or 20 degrees between, it goes for like minus, but that's another story.
I suspect that's an entirely other podcast, in fact.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? We could probably, if you wanted to.
Well, no, we'll move on because it's all about you today, Sanjeev.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm not an expert on water temperature. I wish I was now. I feel like I've cheated everyone. I've come here, I've brought up the temperature of water, and I'm not an authority on it. I do apologise.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to talk about KFC party buckets for now, because that's my mastermind subject.
That's mine. That meat these pizzas. But we've got a few questions for you. A few of our followers. We got a few out. A lot of them asked. Well, we got a few questions, but some are going to be covered throughout the podcast.
Sure.
So we've got a couple there.
So the first one is from Jack McCallion. So thank you, Jack.
Oh no, not Jack. Oh, he's a dick.
I agree with you. But it's funny, this question, no matter who you are or where you are for Scotland, you always get asked it. So the question was, what team do you support?
I'm a supporter of football as a concept and Celtic.
Brilliant.
There you go.
Everybody's got their flaws, Sanjeev, isn't
Do you know what it is? Yeah, I just genuinely, as an Asian in Glasgow, because, and I'm not saying anything about any other club, but Celtic was set up for the Irish community in Glasgow, for the incomers to Glasgow, and I'm an incomer to Glasgow in a way.
Yep.
And I've always wanted there to be a set-up for Asian footballers in Glasgow. So, and I also get sent to Catholic school. So that's kind of why I fell on Celtic. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big football fan, but not in the sense, I mean, I don't go to a lot of games, I'll be honest, maybe 1 or 2 a season, because...
That's shite. Not kidding.
Yeah. But also, I mean, I'm considerably older than you, so I remember football in the 80s when it was dangerous to go to football games, especially when you look like this. You just look a bit different, and you get casuals like ripping up, you know, like the train carriages and like, oh, I don't think I fancy actually going to the games. I'll watch Sports Scene.
That's even worse.
Because you get casuals coming to your house when you're watching Sports Scene. But yeah, Celtic's my team. So.
Do you still follow it a lot? But you used to go to the games?
Yeah. Oh no, yeah. I've got my pal Richard. He lives in Oz, and when he comes over a couple of times a year, we make a point of going to watch a game. And I did go to the Real game, I have to say. And we should have been 3 up. I'm not saying we were lost 4-3, but we should have been 3 up.
I know. There's a lot of games in the Champions League where Celtic could have been 2 up, 3 up.
Yeah, and it happens. And also, that's why I want Ange to stay as long as possible, because if he can sort out not leaking the goals at the same time as scoring loads, it'd be interesting to see how far we do get in Europe. What I will say is you can't say it's not entertaining.
Yeah,
you know, it's very exciting to watch. The whole thing about the inverted fullbacks thing is so just the movement, the passing movement is amazing. So even like when we're not winning games, it's entertaining watching. And also, I love watching footballers that do the hard yards, that do the stuff off the ball.
Yeah.
You look at Maeda, right? Okay, he misses some chances. You can't fault the boy's work rate. He's everywhere. So it's the same with the whole squad. You can't get into that squad now without doing the hard yards. And I think if you're a fan of Celtic, that's what you want to see. You know, you can maybe forgive someone for missing a chance or maybe being not top of the game. You can't forgive them for not being asked.
I know. I like Ange. Like, I was born obviously when Martin O'Neill was the manager, but I think Ange is like my generation's of Martin O'Neill, because I've never seen so much love for a manager. Like Brendan Rodgers, obviously he left, but he was liked when he was here. So was Ronnie Dyler. So was Neil Lennon at the time, but everybody just loves Ange and is taking to him so well.
I think as well, he has, I suppose it's different when you aren't brought up with the poison of sectarianism in Glasgow, and you can come with a slight outsider's perspective and think, well, this is ridiculous, but also equally knows exactly what to say and how to say it. Yeah. Even when he puts his head above the parapet with the VAR thing, even then, he phrases it in a way that's like, he knows. Because let's look, sports journalism is such a weird thing in Britain and Scotland. It's like you could say one word and you'll have 20 journalists putting their shade on it. You know what I mean? It's like someone's made this joke. If you went into a press conference for a football thing and you said good morning, you'd have 3 journalists saying, "What's he got against evenings?"
You would, especially in Scotland.
Especially in Scotland.
But Jack, you've absolutely killed us. Them talking about Celtic news.
Aye. Look, we can talk about Rangers if you want.
No, we'll give them a miss.
We can give 3 minutes on the Morelos weight plan.
Season,
so the next one was from Ross Canlin, is it?
No, Luke Callanan. So, do you watch any podcasts outside of this one, obviously, because you're going to tune in every week for this one?
Of course. I do. There's a few that, when Prince died, I was a big Prince fan, and there was a few podcasts came out about Prince, and I lapped them up. There's a few comedy ones. There's a thing called The Rule of Three, which I've been on, actually. And there's a couple of really good comedy writers called Joel Morris and... I've forgotten his name. He's a pal as well. But they basically just get you on to talk about comedy and comedy that you like, and I'm a bit of a comedy obsessive, so it tends to be. I'm not into the true crime stuff, although I did listen to the Bible John one, the creation of serial killer, was it called? And that was interesting because it was very much about why do we always talk about Bible John? What about the victims? They had a story, they had a backstory, and the journalist goes into very meticulous detail trying to research the victim stories. So that was very interesting. But there's so much out there. There's so much niche stuff out there. You know, there's there's guys that just talk through every single episode of Frasier, like forensically, and I keep meaning to listen to that one because I'm a big fan of Frasier.
You were on Open Goal. Well, you done a part for your Open Goal.
I did a wee
didn't you?
thing for Open Goal. I've not been on Open Goal, but they did this thing where, because obviously it's kind of reached like stadium kind of levels now, and basically, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but they did this thing where it was like their version of It's a Wonderful Life.
Yep.
What if Slaney hadn't existed? And the idea is that, well, actually everyone would be happier if he hadn't existed. And I got to play the sweary angel. So,
that's right. So.
And it was quite nice. They got to improvise stuff slightly as well, which was nice. So that was good fun.
I'm a massive Open Goal fan as well. But my 4 things in life is like Rangers, Still Game, Open Goal and Spiced Onions.
Onions?
That's what my 4... Family obviously is a given, but...
So if you're obsessed with Spiced Onions, I suspect that the 5th element is Rennie's. Do you not get a lot of heartburn?
See, to be honest, it was only before Christmas I started eating them.
What?
I know.
How old are you?
25.
Okay, fair enough.
So, but I ate them. No, I had them in a salad roll, and I thought they're brilliant. So I ended up, from then on, for about November to the now, that's all I've ate is ham salad rolls with cheese and spiced onions.
So do you make your own?
I make my own.
So what do you put in it?
Ham, cheese.
No, specifically the
no,
spiced
I don't
onions.
make my own. I buy them at Aldi.
Okay, right. So it's that Indian restaurant one, the one you get with the poppadoms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Right. Aye. Well, I'm saying to you now, I would bulk buy Rennie's now. It's going to be a problem
Do
for
you think
you.
it'll become a problem? Well, I've calmed down a wee bit, to be fair. So
Just get ahead of time, but get
I will.
a big story.
Spiced onions a young boy's game. That's all I'll say. Young boy's game.
So the final question for the fans was, what's your favourite TV show?
Oh, that's difficult. That is difficult. There's so much good telly. What I'll say is, my two favourite things I say over the last 5 or 6 years have been Succession and Chernobyl. But I mean, like historically, there's so much good telly. I mean, I'd say the comedy that sort of changed my life was a thing called The Young Ones, which was in 1982. Rick Mayall, Ed Edmondson. And for my generation, I'm 52 now, for my generation, that was the first comedy that was actually for the kids and not the parents. But then I'm obsessed with the work of Chris Morris and Amanda Iannucci. Things like Brass Eye and The Day Today, I think, were groundbreaking. There's so much comedy that I watch that I wish I was in. You know, things like Dark Place or things like Peep Show, which I just love what these guys do. And, you know, I still... or anything that Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer does, I'm obsessed with. So I do like a lot of comedy, but there's so much good, especially with the streaming services. There's so much good stuff out there. And you know, when I was younger, it was like, if it's a Sunday night, all you could watch was Songs of Praise. That's all, or Heartbeat. You know what I mean? That's all there was. Now you can tailor each night. Oh, do you know what? I'm going to watch. There's a thing called Slow Horses, which is on Apple TV, which is a brilliant spy drama, which is fantastic. There's a thing called Bad Sisters, which is like a comedy drama on Apple TV. There's any number of really good documentaries on Netflix, like the Gaza documentary even that was on, the 4-parter, or Italia 90. Yeah. So, you know, even if you are into football but you want to go dig a bit deeper, there's so much good stuff out there. I haven't even watched the Messi documentary yet, you know.
I've not watched that.
I've not seen it yet. So,
what's your favourite? I've just started The Sopranos.
Well, okay, right. I watched Sopranos start to finish because I'd never seen a single one. And I watched the whole, I was underemployed at the time, and I watched every single one in a row. I think I did it in about a month. And do you know that way, I did this with The Wire, okay? I did the same with The Wire, I binged it. And I remember my daughter was maybe 13 at the time. And the problem with binge watching something is you end up talking like the show, right? And genuinely, and this is I'm not even exaggerating for comedy effect, my daughter was pouring out sugar puffs. And I thought I fancy some of them. I said to her, or to stop myself from saying to her, could you hook a brother up? What, with sugar puffs? You want to re-up on the puffs? So watch yourself with The Sopranos. If you go too deep, you'll end up...
I've never seen it.
I actually did start talking a wee bit like it to my girlfriend, but I've not picked it up yet.
You'll say bada bing to a taxi driver by mistake, you know what I mean? You'll do it.
Bada bing, bada boom. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Never seen it. See, like, I'm quite...
You do that thing that Tony Soprano does, that kind of black nose thing, you know? You start doing it. You start like you're doing that with your shoulders and like... aye, that's it. Yeah,
See, I'm a bit like, no weird, but I didn't really start... Well, it was always like the same stuff. Like, I only really watched like Still Games, stuff like that, and like not really Scottish shows, but things that were different. But I watched Prison Break during lockdown, and I was hooked on that, and I thought that was brilliant.
That was one of the ones, so you've got, I mean, actually, I think Sopranos was the first one, and then you had Prison Break, which I've not seen, Breaking Bad, which I have seen, the big hitters that, you know, people are like, you've never seen Prison Break, and I'll say, but you've never seen Breaking Bad, but there aren't enough hours in the day.
Oh, I can't know
That's the problem. There's a brilliant 4-part documentary on Netflix about spiced onions.
Is that?
No.
No way.
You've seen it already.
He got his hair.
Jordan was saying he just doesn't really watch TV shows. I will be honest here, right? I actually watched Still Game for the first time ever 2.5 years ago. I was really behind on Still Game.
But you know what it is if you don't get in at the ground floor, sometimes you're like, I've missed the boat here.
Yeah, that's what it was like.
I will watch it at some point.
Aye.
But people are saying that they'll find it. I mean, I did this as a joke on Twitter. I said, thanks to all the millions of people that found Still Game looking for Squid Game. and genuinely 4 radio stations called me up about that. I said, it was a joke, mate. No one has looked for Squid Game and thought, I think I'll watch that thing about the pensions. Because I said, if you're looking for the cult, it happens in Series 9. But people have found Still Game laterally on Netflix and they binged it. And I think it's like I said, when you binge it, you start to inhabit the characters. If you watch it in one big block, it's like eating like 3 Dundee cakes at once, and like you become a Dundee cake, you know. So like the way did you binge it then when you?
Near enough, aye. Now,
if you're saying 2.5 years ago, it means you watched it after we stopped making it.
Aye.
So you must have been.
Aye, and I've watched it fully through again about 4 or 5 times.
Who's your favourite character that's an Asian shopkeeper in it?
That's a tough one. I don't
You get a choice of 2.
That's a tough one. Well, see, you really love Navid, the character.
I love all. We'll go on to Still Game, right? But
Yeah.
I absolutely. I
I want to talk about spiced onions for 45 minutes. How much turmeric do you use? No, I'm joking.
But I absolutely love it. Like, see, we're on about like you kind of talk about the Sopranos. Like, see, like me and my mates and like, my wee brother is a massive fan. But like we just talk about like our part of Still Game. Like, see, like for talking sake, like if you give some, oh thanks, you're welcome. Like, that just comes out. Like that's normal. But like earlier, like me and my pals, like what time will I get you at 2:30? We go. Like, that's an actual thing. Like, and do you know what? See now, you don't even think that. It just comes out. You don't even think.
Me not royal. Yeah.
Aye, but, you know what I mean, stuff like that, and but every day there's something about Still. That's all we talk about, and I know obviously you say it's been done for 2 years, but I think it's massive.
I think it's big.
Massive.
Weirdly, I think it's bigger now than it ever was because of Netflix, and there are people that went out guising at Halloween that are 5 years old. You know, I mean, they clearly didn't watch it the first time round.
Oh, exactly.
But you know, they're into it now, and that's wonderful. It's just lovely to be part of something that people genuinely like. You know, I spent long enough swimming about in the backwaters, you know, making niche comedy, and then you're in something that people genuinely take to their hearts, and people run at you in IKEA with their phone saying, "Oh, could you please call my wife a boot?" Right, fine, if you want, you'll call your wife a boot. Eileen, your boot. So it's lovely to be part of that, and people also say to me, "Oh, are you bored talking about Still Game?" Well, why would I be? You know, I'd rather be in something people liked.
Of course,
Do you know
that's
what I mean?
it, exactly.
And also, we'll talk about football as well. Imagine that you played for one half of the old firm, right, in Glasgow. Half the town would want you on the throne, half the town would want you in the ground.
Yeah.
At least with Still Game, it's 90%, it's nearly universally liked.
Yeah.
So why would I ever take that for granted or do that down, you know?
Well, I seen a thing on Twitter, and it was a guy from Japan.
Did you see that? I was going to talk about that. Did you see the video?
So,
He did a video.
He came over, didn't he? Like,
He came over.
He go to all the places where Still Game was filmed, and that's mad. That's absolutely brilliant, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if this would have gone on the socials, but so basically, Gab Mitchell, that plays Bobby, had got in touch, and he said, "Oh, can you do me a big favour? There's this guy called Koki. He's over from Japan over Christmas. Big Still Game fan. He's come to go to Maryhill to see the flats, to see the shop. And the reason he knew this was that his mate was his Airbnb that Koki was staying in. He said, "Is there any chance you could just do him a wee video?" I said, "Of course I'll do him a wee video. He's come from Japan. Of course I will." And so I did. And then apparently he was like in tears watching these videos that we'd all done. And he did a video back, and he said, I obviously won't do the accent, but he said, I love the show. I love that it makes me laugh. And I want to thank you all, and 2 pints, prick.
That's amazing, isn't it?
In this heavy Japanese accent, I was killing myself. Yeah.
That's brilliant, isn't it? Well, Sanjeev, we're going to go. Where did you grow up? You were born in London?
Born in London,
Mum
aye.
and Dad were from India?
Yeah, so actually, my mum actually grew up in Nairobi in Kenya as part of a big Indian community, and my dad was in India, and they got married and came over to England in 1966, where then my eldest brother was born, and then my older brother and I was born in 1970, and then my dad got a teaching job in Glasgow, so we moved up when I was 3.
Right.
Which is why I've got a kind of anglified accent. So I'll say word and not word.
Aye.
Word and bird, and I hate it, but I'm stuck with it. 3 years old when we came up to Glasgow and grew up in Bishopbriggs. So that's where I had my formative years. But before we moved to Bishopbriggs, we stayed in flats in Hill Head in the West End of Glasgow. So the West End's always felt like home. And then we moved back actually to the West End, and then I've been there ever since.
Right.
But equally, because where are you guys from?
Ballock, just
Okay,
2 minutes
so
up.
there's a whole Glasgow thing where West End, South Side, I can't be bothered with any of that shit, because I grew up in, the thing about Glasgow is, right, Glasgow has got a West End, an East End, a South Side, and a North. There's no word. You do the North, like Game of Thrones.
Aye, that's
like there's White Walkers walking about in Coolside. So I find it hilarious that there's this West End, South Side thing, because I've spent loads of time in the West End, it's where I live now. But equally, I went to college in the South Side, and it's where Naveed's accent's from. It's where the government health thing is totally the South Side Asian thing, you know. I find that West End, South Side thing hilarious, because I think the only bit of Glasgow I don't really know is East End. It's just a bit I don't know very well. Grew up in Bishopbriggs, and then the family moved back to West End when I was 17, and I went to Glasgow Uni, and then I just sort of stayed on. So that's where I am just now. So yeah.
That's good. So where did it kind of go? Like, how did you kind of get into like comedy and like, acting? And
Totally fell into it. Very organic.
Did you start writing for Tune the Fat?
Yeah. So I mean, I'll give you a sort of the long story, but not too long, hopefully. So I had no intention of going into the media, right? I was very studious and academic at school. You know, I was that guy. No pals. I smelled the crisps. So I was good at exams. I convinced myself quite early doors that I wanted to be a doctor, and that made my mum and dad very happy, because like most Asians, they're obsessed with doctors. Doctors are gods, and it's embarrassingly true. By the way, it's like it's not even like so and so's a doctor, so and so's a hematologist. Like I give a fuck.
Why is that? Like, why do you think that?
I don't know, but it's not even just the Asian communities. It's most immigrant communities. For some reason, doctors are gods, and the thing is that, I mean, I've got 3 kids now, and I wouldn't advise any of them to go into medicine, because it's in the state. The NHS is completely on its knees, and it's not a great lifestyle, you know. So anyway, I convinced, like I say, I thought I was wanting to be a doctor, and I got all the exams, and I started at Glasgow Uni Medical School, and within 3 days I knew it was a mistake, right? But annoyingly, the last 6 years of my life have been designed to get me there, so I'm like, oh Christ, what's my plan B here? And then I thought, well, I like maths because I'm that guy. So I did a maths degree instead, and with no real kind of game plan. I thought, well, a maths degree is a good degree to have, because a lot of companies, rightly or wrongly, assume that if you've got a mathematical brain, you can
Maths
go into
degree.
kind of certain. I know.
I never even get nat 4 maths.
I don't even know what I got in maths.
I think a lot of people say you're either good or bad at maths, and that's possibly true. I don't know if it's something you could learn, but I was always quite mathematical. So, like I say, got my maths degree with no real plan to do anything with it. Started a postgrad, way out my depth. Came back to Glasgow, signed on, watched Neighbours twice a day, because you could back then. Signed on, bummed about, travelled to the States for a bit, and I came back to Glasgow. I thought, okay, right, screw the head, you need to actually get a job now. And then a mate of mine phoned me up and said she was producing a radio show. And it wasn't even a comedy show, it was like a magazine show for the ethnic communities of Scotland. I said, look, part of my remit is to look for new presenting talent, and I thought of you. She knew me from uni, and she said, I think you'd be good at that sort of thing. I said, really? Okay. And then I auditioned for the thing, and I got the job, and then suddenly I'm presenting this radio show, and I'm good at it.
How did she think you were good for it?
I don't know. I think she just thought I was quite witty. I thought, thanks very much. But I mean, I'd always been a big consumer of comedy. So from the age of 8, any comedy that was on, be it Morecambe and Wise, the Two Ronnies, anything, we would tape it. Kenny Everett television show, everything. We'd tape it and watch it and watch it and watch it. Because bear in mind, there's only 3 channels and then 4 channels when I was that age. So any comedy that was on, you could just tape it. And so I had a comedy brain really, but I wasn't a performer or writer or anything like that. I just liked consuming it, you know. But I think obviously it must have come out in my kind of everyday kind of conversation. So she'd remembered that. But I was surprised when she asked me. But then, like I say, I'm presenting this radio show. And because it was almost like comedy was my default setting, I would just write wee jokes in the links. Just to amuse myself, because nobody was listening to the show. Nobody.
No, was it just...
No. It was called ghetto blasting, right? And the idea was it was aimed at the ethnic communities, but the idea was to break out of the ghetto by putting us in the ghetto. I didn't understand it. But what it meant was that I was learning how to present a radio show in the dark almost, and finding my own presenting style. And like I say, because comedy, I'd watched loads of comedy, I would just do wee jokes, and that kind of got noticed in BBC Scotland. And that's what led to me writing for Tune the Fat, actually, indirectly. And that was, so I was a writer. I was writing for Tune the Fat, and goodness gracious me, you probably won't remember goodness gracious me because you're
I remember when I was doing a wee bit of research, I remember I had a wee look and there's a few things, but that comes to mind.
So what was interesting about that was Tune the Fat was all my Scottish comedy, and goodness gracious me was all the Asian stuff. So it was both the two worlds. I was writing for them both separately. Thing is the comedy has the same rules. You know, it's the same. A sketch should never be more than 2.5 minutes. It's the setup and the punchline is the comedy rule of 3, applies to all comedy. But I can use like for example, do you remember the sports socks sketch in Tune the Fat?
Did you write
I wrote that, okay? And that was purely based on me walking up Argyle Street in Glasgow and a guy was selling sports socks off a crate. And I don't know why I thought this. I thought, imagine he went and tried to get a business plan from the bank. Wait a minute.
There you go.
So that was the basis of that sketch. But what it meant was I could put the words keeping the edgy in a sketch because I had never, that's the other thing about being sort of an outsider. When I come to Glasgow 3 years old, I'm learning about stuff. So I'm learning about the Crankies and I'm learning about what's an orange walk. I genuinely thought it was like a harvest festival. Until, do you know what I mean? Until I saw the thing behind it. You know, tattooed babies and all that. I won't go into it. I'm not supposed to. And keeping the edgy. Why keeping the edgy? What does that mean? Oh, that just means, you know, I'll keep the edgy. Do you guys do
I know, I keep the edgy. What's your...
But did you ever see it written down? No, because you wouldn't. It's a verbal thing, right? So I got to write lines. And so the bank manager says, what about security? Oh, my pal Chanksy's going to keep the edgy. And it was joyous to me that Greg Hempel had got to say the words keeping the edgy because I'd written those words because it was something I'd grown up with. So that was my Glasgow stuff. And then for goodness gracious me, it was an all Asian sketch show, but it was all jokes that I had kind of unconsciously been fermenting growing up in an Asian house. And so then I'm thinking, right, okay, I'm a comedy writer that does radio presenting. And I sort of thought about doing stand-up, and I did it once and I was dreadful. But then because obviously I knew Ford and Greg and I'd written for Tune the Fat, and I'm in one Tune the Fat sketch, by the way.
See, that's what I was looking at.
One.
What one was it?
It was a Christmas or New Year special. It was New Year, wasn't it? We went to Hogmanay. And it was the Banter Boys. We're here for the banter. And they go to an Indian restaurant. And I'm the waiter.
You're the waiter.
Oh. I might even mention spicy onions, by the way.
I'll need to...
Genuinely.
Match made in heaven here.
Genuinely, I might mention spicy onions. I'm not even joking.
This is a match made in heaven. This is brilliant.
So that was the one sketch that I was in. And so basically, when we were, when I was writing for Tune the Fat, Ford had approached me. Now the thing is that Ford, Greg and myself all lived in the same neighbourhood. And there was a shop there run by an Asian family, and Ford, master of accents, he could do a brilliant impersonation of this guy.
Right.
That kind of half like VG Asian thing.
I love that. See, there's a shop at my bit, and it's like an Asian family, and it's just like the half Scottish, half. But I'm probably rubbish at it, but see,
let's hear it.
Like quality.
There you are. That's actually not bad. That's actually
no,
not
but
bad.
stuff like that. But he's always like, "Hold me, man." No, like,
Oh,
stuff like that.
don't worry, I'm brand new, by the way. It's all
like
that Scottish expressions. Did you enjoy your orange vodka? He would say that. So Ford had said, would it be really off if Ford played the Asian shopkeeper character? Now you get cancelled, right?
Aye, you would.
Aye.
But back then I said, look, you nailed that accent and you nailed that character. It's not that you're trying to impersonate a whole race of people. You're impersonating that one guy, right? If you need any help writing it, I'll help you write it, right? So nothing came of it, right? And then Tune the Fat finished, and then the Still Game thing was being talked about. Oh, Jack and Victor are getting their own show. So Ford and Greg came back to me. So remember we talked about the Asian shopkeeper? I said, yeah, my offer still stands. Do you want me to help? Right? He said, no, do you want to play him?
Right.
I'm like, aye? Because I'm thinking, of course I'd love to do that, because Still Game was always going to be massive, because people love Tune the Fat, and people already love Jack and Victor. But the problem was, for me, was, yeah, everyone loves Jack and Victor. And they also, do you remember, it was the four of them used to do the songs?
Ah, right, that's right.
So they were vaguely aware of they weren't named yet, but there was a Winston and Tam, that was them. So they're the four that people know, but they don't know about Bobby the Barman, and they don't know about Isaac, and they don't know about Navid, and they don't know about Mina. So we could be the ones that break it.
Yeah.
So that's my thinking, is all I could do is make an arse of it. But I knew I could do this Glasgow Asian accent, because I went to Langside College. See, I grew up in Bishop Briggs, which is quite vanilla, quite a white neighbourhood. And I went to St Aloysius, which was like, 3 Asians in the whole place. And one of them was my brother. So, but then I went to Langside College when I was 17, and I knew a few guys there, right, talk like this. Thing is, right, Sanjeev, I know people, right, if they wrong me, I've got cousins who break their legs with hockey sticks, you know. So I'm lapping this up, I'm loving this. And I knew I could do it. And so when I auditioned, I still had to audition to play Navid, which I'm glad I did, because it meant I had to find his voice. But I thought, no, I'll do my dad, but a Ouija version of my dad, because my dad isn't Ouija.
See that, like, I think I heard that in Still Game. I watched that, and a lot of folk like maybe took it off someone they knew.
Everyone, every single one of us. You'll find that actually, if you if you talk to Matt Lucas and David Williams from Little Britain, a lot of those characters are, or the guys from League of Gentlemen, a lot of the best characters are rooted in reality. It's, I know for me it's my dad. I know for Greg it was his granddad. I know for Ford it was his Uncle Barney. Gab Mitchell talked about a couple of guys that he based Bobby on. But it just gives you a reference point, you know.
It's real then, isn't it?
Well, that's what makes it feel real. I mean, you're talking about your local shopkeeper. So many people have said to me, probably in triple figures now, oh, did you base Navid on the shopkeeper in our bit? I said, I think what it is I think Ford and Greg, wittingly or unwittingly, I mean, they're geniuses anyway, right? But I think they recognise that there are shopkeepers in most communities, right? That they've got their own story to tell. They've been there for 20, 30 years. And they've had a battle nets for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
But all they've got is their wit and their banter, because you're not allowed to hit them with baseball bats anymore.
No,
it's unfashionable and illegal. So all you've got is your banter. So you develop this banter, and also you assimilate the accent. But some assimilate it more than others. So some hang on to some of the Asianness. So that in every community you've got someone like that. And they're witty and they're sarcastic. And also a lot of the time they're the guys with the money.
Well, exactly.
They're the guys with the tan merc and the shares. So there's a wee bit of maybe slight arrogance, you know. I mean, I play Navid quite. I remember when remember the episode when Navid has to go to his brother's funeral.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think it was the first time that Navid went. Maybe not the first time, but certainly the first time Navid went to visit any of the boys, because obviously he went to his daughter's wedding, so he was out of the shop there, but. This was the first time he'd gone to visit Jack and Victor. And Michael Hines, the director, said to me, he said, now don't forget, you're the king of Craiglang. You stroll there like you own the place. Yeah. So yeah, you immediately kind of puffy shoulder, you know, like that, kind of like flicking walls and all that, you know. And it's interesting how it affects the way you walk, because yeah, like a lot of these guys they've done really well. But but it's never referenced until, you know, when everyone's going to Hyperdales.
Yep.
And he sacks Isa, and it's I sacked Ben shite jobby, and then I do that big monologue. I was here for all of you, you know.
Aye.
And that's the first time he mentions racism at all. You know, I put up a lot of shite graffiti, and you think to yourself, in that one sentence, he's told this whole backstory that they never felt they needed to like.
No,
that's
just,
you never actually
think
of that. You never think.
Because why would you think of that? But then, and that's the cleverness, the subtlety of their writing is, Navid's nobody's victim. Mina's nobody's victim. They're doing really well. Mm-hmm. But oh, by the way, they went through some shite. But I'm not going to talk about it every day. But that for me was a lovely, just a little, you know. Do you know what? Navid went through some shite. Your local shopkeeper would have been through some shite, probably from you.
No, not for me. I'm an angel. I'm an angel.
I'm joking. Even with the lifting, aye.
No, I'm fine. Do I look like that? Is it,
We're down 5 curly whirlies.
is that because I'm a Rangers fan? Is it all ganging up me now, innit?
So see if you could say one person who could be most like their character. Because I'd love to think the guy who plays Tam is as tight as Tam.
Mark Cox is tight.
Is it?
Is it
You'd be
actually?
the first to admit it.
Is methadone,
I love
Nick
that.
on the methadone?
Yes.
There we
No,
go.
he's on the full heroin.
Is it?
Um,
We actually play football with him.
Aye.
Aye, so
Yeah, aye. See, I played football with him. He's all right.
he's a good player.
He's a good player. He's a midfield enforcer.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, you hesitated there. I played with him once, and he was better than I thought he was going to be.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, as I say, we play 5-a-sides with him, well, 7-a-sides, whatever you want to call it. But,
Yeah. Where did you play sevens?
Well, see, to be fair, I broke my foot in January, and I've not played in a while.
As in last January?
January, I had to get an operation and all that.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a nightmare, so I've not really played. I've only started. I'm actually playing tonight. If you fancy a game, I'm looking for a player.
I'm playing. Do you know what? I would have bitten your hand off, but I've got a thing to go to tonight.
No.
Where'd you play?
We're playing up in Goals in Clydebank tonight. It's like a fives league.
Is it a league?
Aye,
See,
it's
I'm
a league,
not
fives
good enough to play in the league.
No, you'll be fine. You know me. Pumped every week.
I know. I know. I get a pass because I'm vague. I'm a celebrity. It's like, it's Navid. It's fine.
No, but I broke my foot in January and I had to get an operation, so I couldn't walk for about 5 months.
Oof.
So I was off working, off foot, so I just started playing back here. So, but aye, sorry, what you saying?
Aye. So yeah. Mark. Although I need to tell you this story. This is brilliant. I mean, this isn't really answering your question, but it's a funny story. Mark was years and years ago. He was really, really hungover, right? He doesn't drink anymore, but back in those days, his drinking days, really hungover, right? And the only thing that would do it for him was a can of iron brew and a curly whirly, right? So he goes into his local shop, Asian dude. He's a really miserable guy, and so he goes up to the fridge, gets the iron brew, he's like, oh. And then he goes to the chocolates, right? And they're all there, Mars, Double Decker, Twix. There's no curly whirly. He scanned it 3 times. There's no curly whirly, right? So he goes to the guy, he says, mate, where's your curly whirlies, right? And he didn't even look up from his paper. He says, don't stock curly whirlies, too long for shelf.
He was got to there, he's can I do.
That's brilliant.
So, is there any other characters that are kind of like eyes? Like, I know obviously says you take them for some, but you and Isa were obviously, she worked in the shop.
Well, I'll tell you what the boys are very clever at doing. Paul Young, who plays Shug the Lug,
Oh, right,
I mean, he's known for being fishing. I mean, he's had shows about
I
fishing.
was going to say that.
And they put references, lots of fishing references in with him. And also, lovely Jimmy Martin that plays Eric used to be a firefighter. So you know he does that whole thing, he talked about the fire. He was a firefighter.
The fire hydrant.
I was just going to say, so he was actually
He was
a firefighter.
actually a firefighter, and he's been at some proper incidents. There was a fire in central Glasgow years and years ago, quite a famous one, and it was at Gillespie Street, and he was there fighting the fire. So he and also you know the wedding episode, Naveed's daughter.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was based on my wedding.
Was it?
Because Ford and Greg said it was like the thing is Punjabi weddings, right? If you're Punjabi, you're used to it. Basically, it's free food and drink all day, right? And that's just the Indian way, right? Nobody puts your hand in the pocket. But if you're not used to that, it's like, what, WTF? I don't have to pay for this? And there's a bottle of brandy and a bottle of peach schnapps at every table. Not paying for this? What? So it is like the golden ticket. I mean, it's funny so I'm married to Fiona, and when we were planning the wedding, my dad paid for it, right? And so we're talking about, we're going to have a registry wedding, a big, huge reception, 600 people, which is kind of the going thing for a Punjabi wedding. It just
That's
is.
a lot, isn't it?
But that's just the way it is, right? Big part of our culture. And Fiona said to my dad, what about evening guests? What are evening guests? Have you not heard of evening guests? No, what are they? It's as though we know what evening guests are. It's people you don't quite like. They get a rolling sausage and a coffee later, and it's the luckiest slice of cake. No, everyone that comes to my son's wedding will be fed and watered, and that is actually so. It is like the golden ticket. So they based that on my wedding.
See that? I seen a thing on Twitter a wee while ago, and I think it was actually at Parkhead. And it was a kind of light shining up.
Yes.
Have you seen it?
Yes,
It's
yes.
Then a guy at Parkhead's been invited to Naveed's daughter's wedding. I was fishing myself.
Yeah.
Was there a specific moment where you realised, right, this has took off? Or did it just...
It was always going to be relatively successful because obviously everyone knew Jack and Victor already. And because not everyone knows this, but Still Game was a stage play before Chewing the Fat. So in 1997, not everyone's seen it. I know there are, you can get it on YouTube now, but they already had their backstory. They were both widows. I mean, it's not referenced in Chewing the Fat when you see the sketches, but they had their backstory. So I had absolutely no doubt that their characters would be universally loved. But in terms of the whole thing, you're thinking, I don't know. And obviously the way that you make comedy is 6 weeks of filming, that gets edited, then they make the 6 episodes and they all go out. And there's nothing you do to change it. So if the first one is arse, it's all going to be arse. Because you can't change it, it's all made. So you're like that
so
with the first one.
What was a typical day in Still Game filming? So would you turn up, so you said, so you film for 6 weeks?
You film for 6 weeks, yeah.
So would you just turn up and then also get your script and then you would go through it and then kind of act it out? And...
No, so the way it works is you'll do, right at the beginning, you'll do what's called a table read. So everyone just goes in their civvies and everyone's there, the cast, the crew, makeup, lighting, everyone needs to be in the room. And you do a table, you literally read the script thinking, I can't wait to say that. And also, in a lot of ways, that's the best day because you've got an audience.
Right.
So obviously the way, because the thing is, you're reading a line, you're thinking, oh, I can't wait to say that. The day you actually say it, take 7. No one thinks it's funny anymore. You know what I mean? And you got like sweat going down your arse crack, thinking, is this even funny anymore? I don't even know. But that day you do the table read, and they do timings and all that, and they see reactions and blah blah blah, and work out. Oh, actually that doesn't work practically. We'll need to change that. Da da da. So you do the table read, and then maybe, I'm guessing a month later, you're on set, and it's all done out of sequence. So obviously it makes sense to do all the shop scenes together because they've got that set. So I could be filming 4 episodes in one day with different...
that makes sense.
Yeah. It's all out of sequence. It's all out of sequence.
Did you ever struggle to get through a take just because it was hilarious?
I'm the best at being... It's why I'm so good at playing Navid. I play this at home. My kids make me laugh. I can keep a straight face. Ford can't.
Can you know that?
Ford, and especially when it's later in the day and you just get the giggles. But I nearly lost it once. It was, do you remember the Hooch episode?
Yeah.
Oh,
So what's happened is am I in the beginning of the scene? Yes, I am. And then I leave and it's Isa is talking about the wabba wabba. So I've actually gone through the beads, so I'm not in the scene anymore, but I'm physically there. And it's honestly some of the best physical comedy and verbal comedy I've ever seen. Because Greg stacks it and goes like that and flips the flumps up.
Yeah, actually.
Right? And then Ford goes, he says he doesn't like it. And I'm trying not to, I nearly shat a kidney not laughing. Because it was honestly, I'm thinking, I've got front row seats to some of the best comedy.
That's brilliant.
And it was lovely, and I love it. It works just as well on the screen, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm generally really good at keeping my shit together. I'm a professional.
I think the most I ever laughed was the Cairds episode.
I like that's one of my
favourites. They carry Joe in because he's not got his buggy. I was in tears at that. I thought that was so funny.
I think, as I say, I love it all. But see, I don't know. It'd be hard for me to pick a favourite episode, but like, I just loved it all. As I say, it's like my part of every day. Like, your welcome stuff.
Do you think you could have done one more season for perfect number 10?
I think what's nice is I never got the sense that people thought it had outstayed its welcome. See with Chewing the Fat, okay? People were starting to say, oh, it's getting a bit repetitive. Well, it's a sketch show. By its nature, it's repetitive. That's the thing, it's repeating sketches. But I never sensed that with Still Game. What I will say is, I don't know what you guys think about this, a few people thought, we had that 5-year hiatus and then we came back.
Yep.
So we stopped in 2007 and then we came back after the live shows. And it looked different because the technology had changed. So HD TV had kicked in, so it looked different. And then they refilmed the opening, the title sequence, and they re-recorded in fact, they got the orchestra to play the theme tune. So it looked and it felt different. And some people thought, I like the early stuff.
Yeah.
Someone said, and this is, I know what they mean by this. They said when you watch the first 5 series and you walk into the Klansman, you could smell the urinal cakes. There's something real about it, like almost documentary. When you watch the later ones, it just feels a bit too, I don't know. And I kind of know what they mean, but that's about the lighting and the cameras. It's changed. But no one ever said, I've had enough of Still Game. Most people say, could you not done more? And do you know what? We could have done more because Naveed's kids are mentioned in the first series and are never revisited.
Yeah.
Isa's got a son in Bishop Briggs, who is it called Colin?
Colin, aye.
Never even seen him. So there are Tam's baby. Tam's baby. I mean that's the kind of. It's quite funny because you know the very, very last ever scene in the still game is the old Bobby saying, "Look at, isn't he?" And the theory was, who's he talking to? And there are theories that it's Tam's son.
Well, I've seen a thing on it was like social media, and I don't know how true this is, but apparently, see like stuff like that, they were going to bring out, it wasn't going to be still game, but it was going to be like an extra thing, and it was going to be like everybody, like Tam's son, Isa's son, Methadone Mick, you know them, like kind of like Methadone Mick was off of drugs and he was doing well, and kind of like, I knew kind of serious, but I don't know how true that was. It might just be like kind of whispers or whatever. But
they were going to make a 10-part Netflix about Tam's son called Tam's Wayne DeLorean. That's a lie. There was Tam's Wayne. I heard rumours as well that they were, because obviously you could argue that Still Game itself was sort of it actually wasn't really a spin-off because they existed already. But you look at something like Frasier. I mean, Frasier was spun off from Cheers, and you could probably spin off from Frasier again. I mean, it's possible. People have said to me, why doesn't Navid get his own sitcom? Well, I don't write it, so it's not up to me.
Because I watched it late, I couldn't believe it just ended. But it's because I was probably late to the party, and then when it ended, I was like, why is a show that, because in my head it was like it just started.
I need to ask you, were you on the heroin in the 90s? What was the deal? Why did you miss it?
I don't know. I wasn't born in the 90s.
That'll be why.
I'm at 97.
2000.
You make me sick.
But I don't know why. It was one of the things. Because I was so far behind, as you said, my pals in school were hitting it with the patter. I was like, it's long gone now, and it was like just after lockdown. I was like, I'll put it on, and then I was hooked.
See, my wee brother, before we came here, we're just in a house. The teachers are on strike today.
That's right.
So we're in the house, and I was just kind of reading through the script and stuff, and me and him literally sat for about 45 minutes, just like doing the accent with Navid and just going on about Navid's lines. Literally for about 45 minutes, the two of us.
Okay, what's your favourite Navid line in The Voice?
Right, I know, I'll tell you, right? See, when the shop the wee guy comes in and I think he steals something from the shop and runs out.
Oh, the lone wolf?
No. And you run out and you go, come back here again, I'll slit your throat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Accent's probably quite poor.
That's not bad. That's not
bad.
Well,
So,
I think if you want, I can give you a Navid tutorial. Okay?
Go for it.
Okay, so say quality.
Quality.
Okay, I want to say then quality.
Quality.
Like the two words, quality. Now say tenner torties. Drop it down a bit, tenner torties. That's not bad.
That is good.
You talk about playing football. So I was playing probably at the goals at Clydebank, and this is a few years ago. And all I heard was someone go, Mina! And I swear I turned around, right, as a 12-year-old boy, ginger with freckles. And I'm looking behind him, I said, who said that? It was me. But do it again. Mina! Absolutely nailed it. But then it can go the other way. I was round at my sister-in-law's, and my nephew, Harry, had a few of his pals round. He was like 10 or 11 at the time. And they were all kicking about in the attic. And then they found out that, Navid's from Still Games here. We'll put a wee Still Game play on. Oh, that's really cute. So they all came down. I'll be Jack, you be Victor, I'll be Navid. And this boy Blair got to be Navid and he loved it. And he really went for it, but he really got it wrong.
Right.
So it was like Jamaican patois. So he said, here is your chewing gum, and here is your change. I was like, oh mate, I feel for you, because he really, really went for it. But he was like, what, over here somewhere?
That's brilliant, man. You mentioned the live show, so what was that like? It was different? Were you a bit nervous for that? Or?
Well, weirdly, I was probably the least nervous out of the lot of us, because, so I remember, so when we stopped doing the show in 2007, right, I had a theory we would come back, right, because there was too much love for the show. And
sorry, that was well publicised, like obviously Ford and Greg fell out, wasn't it? So see when that happened, we was a bit like, oh no, a wee bit like...
A little bit, I mean, because like, I knew there was unfinished business in terms of we had so many more stories to tell, and the show had really, really kind of, by that point it was, I think, possibly the biggest show in Scotland's history. oh, why are you stopping now? But then that happens. It happens with, like, for example, with bands, right? You can almost draw a graph, okay? So when a band starts out, okay, they love what they do because it's what they always wanted to do, but they're not making the money they want, but they're loving their life. So that part of the graph, then they get more popular and they hit that sweet spot where they're earning the money and they're still enjoying it. But beyond that, you get more pressure. And then, you know, you've done it for a while and you're getting a wee bit fed up, and then you're making the money and you're successful, but you're maybe not enjoying it. It's feeling like a job now. To the point where maybe it breaks and you've had enough and da-da-da. And I just think the boys, because they write, Ford and Greg write every single word of that show. I think people think I write Naveed's character. I don't. Ford and Greg write everything. And we're lucky enough to get to say their words because they're comedy geniuses. And so I just think that they had a bit of a burnout. And so they stopped. And then, like I say, I thought, do you know what? Give them 3 or 4 years, I think we'll come back. I had a 5-year kind of thing in my head, right? But that's what happens with bands. It's not that they forget why they fell out. It's just that when you have a bit of distance from something, you remember the good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. And you think, oh, what are we thinking of? We need to get back together. But I didn't think we were going to do a live show. Because I always remember, like, I got my agent said, oh, just to let you know, Sanj, you're going to get an email and the Still Game's coming back as a live show at the Hydro. I'm like, the fuck?
Nah, that's not happening.
That 12,000-seater arena?
But so
Are you kidding me?
I might be wrong, but it was only about 20 odd shows.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but we were booked to do 4. So that was the deal, was there's going to be 4 shows, and if they sold out, they'd maybe put another one on, right? So what we did was we did a big press conference on the Wednesday, and there was the 7 of us, and every single camera in Scotland seemed to be there. It was like Holyfield Tyson. It was like a heavyweight fight, and all the cameras were there. And I have to say, the 7 of us together, we felt like the Magnificent 7. It felt like, oh yeah.
Gallus, sort of, yeah.
It was like, I can't believe I'm with these guys again. This is magic. So we did the press conference, and this was to promote ticket sales for the pre-sale, which is going to be on the Friday. No, pre-sale was going to happen, then the actual sale was going to happen on the Friday. They sold out Thursday morning, and they just kept adding shows. It got to the point where we'd a group chat and saying, well, what do you reckon, 12? I think 11, 21.
21?
That's
21.
crazy,
I
man.
thought that is crazy.
So then you're thinking, they better be good. Because imagine that first one, shite.
Gone for the biggest
long month. Thankfully, though, the boys wrote a really, really good show, and Michael directed a really good show, and it was amazing.
Is it hard just constantly doing the same thing but 21 times in a row?
No, that's the thing. You get used to those rhythms, and actually, because I don't do a huge amount of live work, and that's why I was the least scared, because pretty much all the cast have done other venues like the Pavilion in Glasgow, the Kings or Oranmore, all these venues, right? And they know how they behave. They've all done panto. And they know when you're doing comedy, you do the joke, you get the laugh, you ride the laugh, that's how you do it. How the hell is the Hydro going to behave? No one's done, yeah, okay, the stand-up has been done in the Hydro, but not like narrative comedy. So how the hell is it going to behave? Is it going to be like one bank of laughs? Is it going to be patchy laughs? Is it going to be nothing? But because I didn't know what to be scared of because I didn't have a frame of reference. So I was like Scooby-Doo, so this is happening. So in a lot of ways, I was the most fearless because I didn't have a frame of reference. But it wasn't until we did that first show that we knew it was going to work.
Yeah.
I can just tell right away. I was at the first show, but a few of my mates were going to another show and they had a spare ticket, so I ended up going twice. But at one of the shows here on about Ford and Greg, 2 guys end up fighting. I don't know if you know this, right?
Oh God, yeah, you could hear it.
And so they were fighting, they get flung out, and then they've come out and went, oh, 2 daft bastards just get flung out to Klansmen for fighting.
Yes.
But it was like pure quick, and then like starting going on about it.
And that's the beauty of doing the live show, is you can incorporate stuff that happens at night, and that audience will be the ones that, it'll be a unique experience for them.
Were you alright that night?
No, wait, do you know what, I tell you what, we're backstage, and the acoustics in the Hydro are so good that you can hear
Can you?
stuff, and I remember looking around the curtain, you could see 2 security guards holding their hats, running. I mean, it was weird because it was such an event, and I get why this happened. People are getting payday loans out to buy. It'll be the only thing they go out to see that year. So of course they're going to get canned during the day and make a day of it. and they show up leathered at the show and get, you know, it was going to happen.
It was all over that steak pie, I heard.
No, it felt like that. It felt like there was that level of aggression.
But it was just good how they came out with that, like just stuff, and then you're like, you know what I mean? It was just quite quick off them.
Stuff like, did you come to the second one?
I was at every show, aye.
So do you remember the whole thing on the boat? The ship, the cruise?
Yeah, aye.
Right? And do you remember at the end? It was Isa and Navid.
Aye,
and it was
that's
like
right.
Titanic.
Aye.
So for anyone that hasn't seen it, there's this whole thing, it's all set on a cruise ship, and Isa and Navid have a nearly moment where Isa thinks Navid is into it, and he isn't. He's written a letter to Mina, big mix-up. So at the end, so at every live show, you had the bit at the end, like you do in the telly show after the credits, the wee extra bit. So this extra bit was the ship's coming back into Glasgow. So Isa's standing at the prow of the ship, and it's like, and Navid comes up in his Bollywood gear because they've had this dance off, right? And Isa says, here we are, back to Glasgow, back to reality. And I say, there's third time. And I fling my shawl over my shoulder, and you stroll over, and every night, 10,000 people are going, ooh, these two pensioners are going to kiss, ooh. So you're strolling over like this, and you're thinking, this is amazing. And just one night, a guy obviously couldn't, might have been one of you, a guy, he couldn't keep himself, like he couldn't keep it, he just shouted, Naveed, get her pumped! And you know, it was that loud that everyone heard it, and I couldn't not refer to it, because it had happened. And I was like, oh, geez, a minute, you dirty bastard. And it got a massive laugh. And that's the beauty of live. Is that when you can, and only those guys knew that happened. So it was lovely.
Yeah.
Aye.
Oh, that's good. I remember the last live show, we kind of like down the front, and like, obviously like, when Tam Goes to Hell, like Jimmy Savile's there and all that. It was just brilliant.
Oh, I tell you what though, that no one wanted, that was a struggle to get any of the dancers to do that, because like someone needs to play Jimmy Savile, it was like this, but one guy thankfully did it. It gets a massive laugh.
Exactly, that's it. It's part of it. So it's obviously it's bad what he done, but you don't like into that. But no, that's so. That brings us on to you're in Rap Scene Nesbit, and also your River City as well. That's kind of up the road, didn't it? So
yeah, not far from you.
How did that kind of come about? Just auditions and stuff?
No, they approached me. The weird thing is because I write as well. I've been approached kind of a couple of times through my writing agent to maybe write for River City, but I just think writing for a continuing drama is really, really difficult, and I'm quite lazy. So I thought, I don't want that pressure, so I sort of politely said, look, I'm really flattered to be asked, but I don't know if I fancy it. And then, God, what year was it? 2015, 2016? I can't remember now, but my agent says, oh, the exec producer wants to meet you. I said, I assumed it would either be to write or to maybe do a wee guest spot. So I went to meet her, and she was the new producer. And she said, look, cards on the table, I'm a big fan of yours. We want to write a character specifically for you, like a returning character. Do you fancy it? I'm like, yeah, right.
Go for it.
Because, you know, I'm at a stage where I still audition for things and still have to convince people, and I'm being offered something off the bat, regular work. And bear in mind as well that you don't get much regular work in my game. So it was, and River City is an institution. You know, I can't say that I'd watched it religiously, but I had watched it. I knew all the main players, and I dipped in and out of it. And I loved that there was continuing drama by Scottish people, for Scottish people. I loved that. So I said, yeah, of course I'd love to do that. And they tailor wrote it for me. To the extent that I remember I did my first few scenes, and the producer came and said, it's almost like you're trying too hard. We've written this for you, just be yourself. Yeah. I'm like, really? Is that interesting enough? Well, no, yeah. And it's a lovely place to go to work. Made loads of pals and learned loads, because you've got to move quickly. I mean, it's hard, but when you get into the rhythm of it, even just like things like learning lines, it's really helped for other jobs.
That's mad you still have to audition, but I thought like well known, like just right, we'll get him in.
Well, that's what happened in this instance. In this instance, I mean, I think. Look, I've got a certain profile in Scotland where, see, it depends. A lot of stuff that's made in Scotland, it'll be English producers that aren't necessarily across still game. But if it's Scottish, they know who I am. I mean, what they might need to see is, all right, okay, but has he got range? Can he play a junkie, for example?
Well, aye, that's it, exactly.
I could pure play a junkie, no bother.
I
didn't leave those two stone away. I could knock my bars and Xbox full of junk, man. I could do it. No, but it's like, I'm being flippant, obviously, but they might need to be convinced I've got the range, but I'm lucky that I've stayed in the game long enough that I've got a certain profile in Scotland. So, and that's what it did for, still game has opened a lot of doors for me in Scotland. But I still want to do other work outside of Scotland. But I never want to. I always want to be based here. I love Scotland. Glasgow's my home. It's where I raised my kids, and it's a brilliant place. And I love the people here, and I still want to work in Scotland. But you'll see stuff that's happening elsewhere, especially with Netflix. You'll see Scottish actors doing different stuff. And, I want to do that. Oh. You get quite jealous. There's a lovely actor, lovely guy called Ryan Fletcher, who actually was in Still Game. So he was in River City, and in fact, his brother Scott is still in Still Game. And Ryan he's such a sweetheart, and he's a great actor. And he got picked up to play to be to play Batman's butler in the I can't remember what the show's called, but big show.
I can't know the boy you're on about. And Scott, have you seen like Gary Tank Commander?
It's his brother.
Oh, his brother.
His brother Ryan, really nice guy. And you think, just Scottish actors can get parts in these things. And you look at like Sam Heughan that's in Outlander, and it'd be lovely to get a part like that. But I'm doing okay. But you see these things and you think,
So that's what would you say is next for you? Still River City, or are you going to?
Well, I'm still in River City, but not much. So I'm still doing that. I've got my Radio 4 comedy, Fags, Mags and Bags, which we're doing. We found out we're doing an 11th series of that, which is lovely.
That's been going for a good while.
That's been going. That's been going since 2000. In fact, weirdly, we started doing that when Still Game stopped, and I'm playing another shopkeeper, which is hilarious. But I write this one myself, so that's. I love that. I always say Still Game is my nephew, but Fags, Mags and Bags is my child. Because I write it as well as act it with Donnie McCleary, who's my writing partner, genius. For example, I had one day on a film. An American film, right? But they filmed it in Budapest. So I was out in Budapest for 5 days before Christmas.
Oh, brilliant.
And what it is it's called Fight or Flight. And I don't know how much I can say about it, but it is an action comedy set on a plane with martial arts in it. And I play a pilot. And I cannot wait to see it. I'm literally in 3 scenes and I've got about 12 words, but it's lovely. Completely. Because that's the weird thing about my work is you could get picked up for something like that. That could be an international thing. Equally, you could still be doing a tonics campaign in Scotland. Do you know what I mean? And I love the variety. I love doing that variety.
I should say that's good, because it keeps you going every day, doesn't it? Something different every day, and it keeps you going.
And in as much there's zero job security in my line of work, but it's the variety that's the payoff.
Keeps
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what about, see if you walk down the street and that, you should say like the folk come up and just ask for photos and...
Yeah, people, it's hilarious when they want you to swear at them and call them, junkie bastards and all that, fine, aye. But yeah, it's lovely, and people are mostly polite with it. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes you've taken your son to a soft play area and he's away playing with his pals. You fall asleep and you wake up and someone's filming you sleeping.
That's mental.
And like, if you wanted a selfie, then I'd have given you one. And most people are nice with it, and like I say, I don't ever begrudge it, because without the fans, it shows nothing.
Well, that's the same as everything.
You're the same with everything, and people have been they've taken Still Game to their hearts. That's the other thing. You're not bored of being known for the same character? No, I'll be buried as Navid. I've said this before. I'll be in full Navid costume as I'm being lowered into the ground.
Well, see,
I want people to throw curly whirlies and spicy onions at me as I'm lowered.
I'll come down with spicy onions.
Could you?
See when I agreed to come on before Christmas, me got in contact with you, I was like, result, how buzzing was that, right? And I was like, we've got Navid for Still Game, right? So we're all singing through our guests, we've got this guy on, we've got Navid on Wednesday or whatever. We've got Navid this, we kept on calling you Navid, and we were like, we need to stop that, we need to call him Sanjeev.
I have no issue with that, honestly. I'm flattered that, on a slightly more serious level, right? It's, in terms of like even race relations, right? If Navid is the only Asian that you know, and he's fictional, but he feels real to you, and you like him, why would I not be proud of that? Why would I not want to be part of that? What I always say, and again, this is down to Ford and Greg. I obviously bring authenticity and the voice and the physicality of it, and I know I'm good at it. I know this guy. He's like my dad, so I know him.
Yeah.
But if what I think is that, especially at a time when, especially Muslims were kind of demonized, I feel that Navid humanized
I did.
You know what I mean? It's like
true.
okay, yeah, I might look different, but do you know what? 90% overlaps. You know what I mean? I use the same words as you. I'm sarky like you. I slag my wife off like you. She slags me back better like you. I think it celebrates what we have in common. Yeah. And why would I not want to celebrate that? You know, I love the fact that someone told me, in fact, we were talking about football before. Someone said that they went out to Seville for the UEFA Cup final, 2003, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he said there were a couple of guys on the plane. There's always wisecrackers on the plane, right? And there were two guys cracking wise, and they were proper funny. And they started doing Navid. And he said, even 2 years ago, if guys were doing these Asian accents, you'd think it was racist, but it's clearly with affection.
Yeah.
Aye, cool.
It was, and that was lovely to hear. And that was only like 2 years after we started the show, that people had taken him to their hearts. And I have no issue with people doing Navid impersonations.
Is that a cleaner in there? I think there's...
Is that the cleaner or is it the hand dryer?
Who?
That's a sign that the party... That's the party over, boys.
Special guest, Isa. Jane McCarry, everybody.
He's making the podcast, boys.
No, superb. Well, Sanjeev, honestly, I'm absolutely buzzing to have you on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, but was it a disappointment to you?
No, hey, by the way, it's an absolute pleasure. Remember, like, share, subscribe, follow our social media.
Brilliant.
Get into 86 Media, Harry's Tiles, HD Tiling, and also
Harry's Tiles, you go in one direction.
the Pier and Ballock. As I say, thanks a lot, Naveed. Sanjeev, it's been a pleasure.
It's absolutely fine, Barbara Ann and Jennifer.
I appreciate it.
Brilliant, cheers.